Good evening. I'm Isura. I've been a social entrepreneur for 12 years, and in those 12 years, I was able to meet thousands of Sri Lankans from all walks of life, from people of higher echelons of power and influence to people who cannot even afford their meal, let alone the education. And I've also been to a few countries who I have seen that they are doing differently education than us. So today what I'm going to talk about is the tragedy of education that is our country is in through the years of experience I had. So in August this year, I've been in Seattle to a workshop which was invited by Microsoft. Being Microsoft, I thought that this is a technology immersion, and I was hoping for that. But instead, I landed in this place, far from technology, but in nature and in a lot of seclude. For what we have done in those 10 days is not to go into technology, but there were 14 individuals from Asia Pacific and Oceania region, people from not-for-profit sector leaders from China, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Malaysia, and New Zealand and Australia. So what we did in that workshop was to have an open conversation, and these 10 days, not a single slide has been used. And we even did this. So this was called phone in the basket. In all the sessions that we were in, before we enter the room, we have to put our phones out. So all the sessions, we were able to have a meaningful engagement without the distraction that we usually have with the phones in our hand. So for all the 10 days, this is what we have done. So this has basically changed my life. I mean, come on, would you think that you will be able to put the phone away for 15 minutes? Because we are so connected with it. But I basically said to the moderator that we won't be able to survive this, because there is family and there is also colleagues in Sri Lanka that is waiting for me. And I thought that, even for having for 2 hours would be a problem. But to our surprise, we were able to do that. But here's the thing, 2 hours of session, no phones, but then in the breaks, we would take the phone. And we survived the 10 days. And this has basically, changed my life. So the conversations that we had all throughout the workshop, normally when we think about leadership workshops, is that we think that somebody has to come and talk about what is a leader should be. But here we were speaking and listening to each other about the challenges, and we learned a lot, more than anything else that I've ever did in my life. So this was peaceful. Until this. On the 6th day, we were taken to Microsoft head office. And as you can see, this is a huge tent, the size of a football field. What they were doing is hack for good, which meant the Microsoft employees, Microsoft customers, and the NGO partners in US get together and hack for solutions. And they have been doing it for 7 days, and we went there on the 7th day. And we were not allowed to take the pictures for obvious reasons. So we were allowed 1 hour to go there and to see what they were hacking. And so we went in there, and all we could see is rows of stations, just like what you find in a call center. They are demonstrating what they have done within these 7 days. So all I could hear is blah, 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 artificial intelligence, blah, 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 machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, all the stuff. At that moment, I found out that I have been irrelevant. I have known these words, but to see that thousands of people screaming about these things and have made applications out of this. I thought to myself, back in Sri Lanka, we are running an organization called Surveyor Fusion, ICT for rural development, and I immediately found that we were irrelevant. What shocked us is the next thing. This is the Envisioning Center, which gives you the future of what is a home and an office would be. I think Yudhanje would give more proof to that with his talk later in the day. Incidentally, his book was launched on the same day, and I was reading that, and this happened. So basically, you go in, and it is a home, the future home. It's not a prototype, actually. We were not allowed to take pics, but I can obviously say things. So when you enter the home, this is what happens. They have predicted well. You know, my age is 35. I'm actually 37, so they have predicted well. But here's the funny thing. At the home, before we enter the home, we are under the surveillance. So the host would get a real-time input, you know, how many people are not happy. So might as well the assistant would say, there are 3 people who are not happy, why don't you do something to cheer them up? So when we heard that, all of the participants who are like in the not-for-profit sector, we all are, we froze. How can you have this much of surveillance in life? And it got better that you walk into the home and you have a kitchen table. It's like a huge iPad, literally. So you can put vegetables on it and it will give you the measurement, like 250 grams. And you can swipe in the menus and everything on it. Only thing you couldn't do it is cook it. And all the walls were screens. For example, if my wife calls me in, she would be in the screen. And everything is recorded and updated. So if you go to the living room, it will be the same extension. If you go to your sleeping room, you would have the same music streaming again. It's all screens, and everything's been recorded. Okay, you get out of it, and you go to the office. So there is the smartphone. The phone is, you don't have apps anymore. Basically, the phone is a personal assistant to you on real time. For example, I wake up at 8 a.m. and he would remind. You know the AI assistant in Microsoft is Cortana, like Alexa in Amazon. So it would ask me in voice, can I order you a regular coffee? And if I say yes, he would do the transaction. All I have to do is to pick up the coffee. And when I went to the office, there is this Cortana in middle, cameras and voice recorders. All the meeting will be recorded. So all the minutes will be taken, just like what you get on WhatsApp. Everything what I said, what my colleagues have said. Before coming into the office, the phone would ask, you have a meeting at 9 a.m. Shall I send them the latest version of the report that you have been working in the night, before night? And if I say yes, it does it. I don't go to the phone, it does it. So before we have seen it, it was like magic. But then again, if you really look at it, it's the next obvious extension. We have apps tracking all our behaviors and patterns, and then it's all about machine learning, and it will pool all that data and relevant, it will give you real time. Because you don't use the phone comes to you with the alerts and everything. So after that, all of us was properly fatigued because one thing is that there's so much of surveillance, so much of data being taken off. For example, in the meeting, if I go on, like say that, go back to the previous iteration, I want to change the date to 29th March, and it would change it. And before we leave the meeting, all the participants would get their to-do lists to their phone. And that's the reality we are going in, and that's the technology that we are stepping into. And I have also seen this at the same time, that in the last year, 110,000 people were recruited by Amazon. And in the next 2 years, Amazon will be recruiting 35,000 software engineers alone. And this is not fulfillment staff who are working at the warehouses, but 35,000 software engineers in the next 2 years. And so you can see where the world is heading. It's all data, it's all information, how to manipulate it. We can have a night-long conversation, debate about this, but at the end of the day, this is the reality we are facing, which is inevitable. And with all these things rattling in my head, and the next day I went to this Mount Rainier, and there was no phone signals in there. So we had a day of completely resting and getting out of that, all the information flow that was coming in. And the next day we met, and we were having this conversation whether internet is good, whether this technology is bad, but we understood in our conversation, this is the world we are going in. So how can it help the rural people that we are serving? What I understood all these my life, probably in social media, if you are a friend with me or following me, you would have seen that I've taken social media detoxes. Like I would go out of social media for about 2-3 months in a stretch. Right now, I found out that is not working, but the good thing I have found out is that to be relevant in this world, you have to have a deep dive to find out what is happening in the world. But then again, you need to have chunks of time, which is deep learning or deep work, where you create things. Because we are distracted by so many things in life, with the mobile phone specifically. The creation happens when you have time off for yourself. And it has gone me for an extent that I use social media every day, and also for the email. I used to have email on my phone, in time I would reply, but now I would go into email 3 times a day, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., yes, 3 times, and it worked. In the other time, you can have creative work, you can have deep work. It's so productive because you can get so many things done. And back home, when I came in, this made a lot of sense. This has been circulated many times. You probably would have seen this. Have you seen this? Can I have a raise of your hands? Sure. So this makes a lot of sense now with the technology revolution that we are having. And this is the team that Sarvodaya Diffusion has. What we do is provide education services to rural students in the country. We operate in 25 districts of the country. And these are the grassroots partners we are working with, who inspire people to use IT to reach for opportunities, new opportunities like education and employment. And also co-create space for innovation so that each individual can have their own true potential realized. And this is one center in Maravilla. They have just completed Microsoft Office Specialist, which is an online course. When started, these students were afraid of English, and they did not want to do the online exam because they are so used to the student-teacher relationship that we have. So they did not take the classes. So one of our colleagues went in there and gave them the training and got the fear out of them. And 2 of those students took 100 out of 100 marks. And I talked about the tragedy in Sri Lanka in education. So this was in the focus when we did career guidance workshops. So normally what happens is that in career guidance, some instructor or a moderator would come and talk for about a long time. But here we did have in a circle, ask them to talk about what the ambition they have, and how do you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Those are the two questions. And then they were seated around and had to have the conversation. To our surprise, this is what came out. Like, for example, you ask from a student, what is your ambition? So obviously, engineer, doctor, lawyer, and then sometimes there is teacher. And then the next girl go, teacher, teacher, teacher. And if someone says nurse, and the next girl goes nurse, nurse, nurse. And then I ask the question like, do you know what it takes to be a nurse? Do you know what it takes to be a teacher? They don't. Why? Because you are going on a factory from grade 1 to grade 12, and your specific skills are not being recognized at all in our education system. It was not my case when I was doing A-levels in '99. It is not the case even now. And what happens is that these students who are unaware and who are ignorant, it's not their problem actually. But here's the thing, we have internet now. Everybody has smartphones. Their parents have smartphones. With all the information in our hands, we don't know that these opportunities exist. It's a tragedy, because this conversation doesn't happen in neighborhoods, in schools. It's a factory that comes in. So with all the possibilities of opportunities Sri Lanka has basically on software and information technology, a lot of people do not understand those opportunities. So we get students to organizations like Vertusa to show them the opportunities that is there. So now you can see in this picture, everybody's like this, hunched, not sure what to expect. This was the same feeling I had when I came to Colombo. I'm from Galle. On the first day, when I wanted to enroll to CIMA, the receptionist asked me a question and I could not answer her. That's the same feeling. And after they've gone through the study and gone through with the instructors, they show them, these are the opportunities available. And it changes them. I don't tell that, if 100 students go in, all the 100 will be changed, but there might be 5 people who would take the inspiration. Something changed dramatically for us in December 2016. There was this coding relay. There was the competition that teams pitched in. There were teams from University of Moroto, University of Colombo, and also a team from Udubada and Anasala that we worked with. So this team, on that day, beaten other teams to be the first. That gave them confidence, and that gave them evidence that with new technology, the education field is flat. If you want to do stuff, you can gain the momentum. So we shared this story in social media, and we want to reach out to mainstream media, but unfortunately we could not get the story breakout. But we used social media in a personal way. We started sharing in our personal way. So it got a lot of traction. Since being a social enterprise, we don't have a marketing muscle, but through social media, we were able to get the message across to the rural students, and that inspired them. So here we are in a recent award ceremony in Kurunagala. I witnessed a debate. This side was debating that internet is good, and the other side was debating the internet is bad. And you wouldn't believe the things that they have said, because they had to do the research, and they were telling things like blue whale, right? Amazing. Like, you wouldn't think that, students of this age would come up. This is rural. So this is what happens when you have engagement. It's not what happens in school. You need to have engagement, people talk about it, have a debate. That's when traction happens. That's when people get creative. And we started doing IT education and English for these kids. And not only that, we are with Ministry of Education now going into schools with a partnership. We started a program called IT Yahamaga. In that, what we do is to show how technology can be used for your education and find opportunities and employment. And we have very open discussions with the students. And you wouldn't believe that the students will not tell you that they are using smartphones. But one of the principals came to us and said, don't take their word, because I know they have about 5,000, 10,000 rupees in their pockets. The students. And how they do that? They do phone businesses. And this is a bit controversial, but I would like to say this because this is the reality we're facing in. One principal said, making a gallamanu blue film balno. Now, this is a shock, but is it? In our days, if you wanted to do that, it would have taken so much trouble, right? You have to go find a VHS cassette, right? I don't know, I'm from 99, right? You have to have from school, if you're going to school in the uniform, you can't go with the uniform. You go into this VHS parlor and take a cassette and find a vacant home. It's very hard, I tell you. You've done that. I don't know about you, but right now, what's the case? This is inevitable. Children have this. And what do they do with it? Do you think that we know? No. They go to that. That is reality, that is okay. But here's the thing. If we have to be relevant as a country, we need to find structure. It's okay to be on Facebook all day if that helps you. But then what you can do with this, there's more you can do with that. That's the conversation we need to have. Probably you think that we do it, but in my experience, it's not enough. It's far from enough. It's like tiny percentage. There's so much of conversation needs to happen. I tell you what. So these girls go on to get a degree. What happens to them? At the marriage, they will dump the degree. That happens, right? And there was, at one of the career guidance workshops, 18-year-old said that I want a government job. I said, why? Because my parents tell me so. And why is that? Because I get a pension at 60. So I asked him, what the hell, you are 18 and you are living 60? Yeah, because we want stability. So imagine, no matter how many workshops you do, right, you go home, you go to the school and suck into that culture we have. Remember, we created that culture. We are the ones who created that culture. Ain't us? For example, if you want to find a good technician, would you give the same respect to a technician as you give it to a software engineer? You would haggle to give to a technician, right? If a good plumber comes in, still he does a good job, but he's a plumber, I will haggle. This is the culture shock that we have. We tend to think that we want things, but we are not really in it. One of my friends in school, I went to Mahinda, Goal, he failed maths. And this is a funny story. He's the son of our maths teacher. It's a disaster. So he's the friend who is next to me, and he was telling, but he's a very practical guy. He said, like, I don't want to do A-levels. But I said, just do it for the fun of it, for the kicks of it. Just go through A-levels even if it is Fs. Just do it because parents want it. Because he had a passion. Because we found out when we went to their home, he has basically a කියන්නේ මස් කරනවා කියලා ෆියට් එකක් මස් කරලා තිබ්බා. And I said, why are you doing this? Because I want to repair this. 2 days later, we went there and he actually has repaired that. That's his passion, and he followed that. And he did a course going into Japan. And now he is well received by Japan and Dubai at any time. He has job offers from every places. Why? He has gone with the technology. He was showing me in the smartphone, like, you know, he's doing this backhoe and all this heavy duty stuff. So he's one of the few players who knows how to use technology, software, hardware integration. He is in high demand. But what if he has sucked into that, I failed maths, I failed A-levels. This is the reality so many children are going through. And this is the reality these children are going through. I'll tell you a small story about, so we talked about big data, the small data stuff. This is a program we did at Estate Sector in Hatton. The program was to improve nutrition awareness among the estate sector, because the malnutrition is high in estate sector. So we had to do a workshop on social media as well. That was pre-designed. Do a social media workshop for them. But we were a bit skeptical. And we went to their homes before we doing the project, because we did not know these people well. And what happened is that this is the home he has. This is the whole home he has. But into the 40th minute, he started talking. His mother has went to Dubai. And you can see the Vaseline and all the creams on the side of the table. The mother has bought it. And they have seen the world. And he said that, actually, I'm using phones. And what are you using? I'm using WhatsApp, Viber, Imo. What are you doing? I'm connecting with my friends. So this stuff we don't know. And they are using phones heavily, that we ultimately connected the project to this. What we ultimately did was to give them a leadership workshop for 2 days. We didn't talk nothing about nutrition for 1.5 days. Only in the last half day that we talked about nutrition. And they started going home to home, making awareness in their neighborhood. It's an amazing thing. They took the lead. And to our surprise, they started a Facebook page called IT Shakti. And they started doing Facebook live webcasts. All the Shramadana they were doing, all the school campaigns were doing. Social media training, 0. This is the reality that we have. If someone says that Sri Lankans do not know how to take use of technology, they do. But the problem is what they are using it for. And one thing that I keep on remembering is when disasters happen to Sri Lanka, it's the same mechanism that we have since the tsunami in 2004. If you don't think it is, just tell me if it is not. Disaster happens, it should be a flood, of course, right? You have to go and give to the person yourself. This is the same scenario in 2004. We have so much of technology right now, but we are doing the same thing. And this is Moravaka, where the landslide happened. This area used to have 3 homes. And we went there because 3 of our students were dead and they were not recovered. And to see the resilience of these people and to find out why they are not being benefited with the stuff, the services that they need to have, is pretty simple. The reason is they are not in the system. They are not an information in Sri Lanka. Like, for example, when the disaster happened, you need to have information of people. We don't have it. And we spent like 2 days talking to people, and locking ourselves in a room for one day to think, what we can do about this. And technology. It dawned on me, so this is the small relief program we do. I mean, this is what is happening when a disaster strikes. You go there with what you have, take a truck, go in loads. You have to deliver yourself, you have to see the people. But only when there is a flood, there is a drought out there. So people are not in the system, so they are not getting the services that they need. So what occurred to me is that in that center that they're doing it, I saw this picture, like, from 2012. We have this award ceremony every year. These students comes in to Maharagama Youth Center. They get the certificates and the awards. And I saw these benches, banku tika. And in that banku, they have written Google, Facebook, Twitter. They were having some maps, like when we do in school times. So they were aspiring to be with the technology. And all of a sudden it dawned to us, like, if we can connect the agencies that needed to be connected, but it's hard. But finally, to our surprise, we landed the program now to find out the data gaps in the country that doesn't allow the government or the other sectors to reach the really affected people. So we are doing a study, and it came out of nowhere. But then again, we are going into government offices, 60 government offices. We first thought, like, it would be really hard. There will be no data. But to our surprise, there are really good people in the government sector. There is data, but in different places. And with all these data coming in, it was hard for us to really take a stock out of it. And that's where I started to become relevant, because I knew that my old knowledge is not going to be enough. So my good friend Yudanje has been doing Coursera courses. So I thought I had to give a try as well, because we are telling people to get more courses online. There are alternative ways. So I tried it. Before I tried it, but I was not successful. I have given up half the course. But this time I was able to complete it. And funnily enough, Coursera, this course, I have done it completely on my mobile. I can download the content. I can do the quizzes online. It's ultra user-friendly. And it just gives me a confidence boost that I know the knowledge. And all the words that I did not know at that Microsoft Hack for Good, it came back to me. And this is possible, friends. This is possible. And this is what we have to aspire to. But we have to do it in a systematic way. You all are influencers. In social media, you have great influencers. Like, for example, where is Kalumalli? There he is. You have influence. Like, try to talk like these instances and get people to talk about it. You have great fellowship. I know there are a lot of people who are like that, our own celebrities. Keep talking about these things, because if we have to change, we have to change. And in a country like ours, we have been waiting for the government to do a lot of things. But there are things that we have to do as well. For example, we want government to do the garbage thing, but we don't want to sort it out. So think about it. So there is a responsibility in us too, to have this conversation more often. Then we can have a change. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much for listening in. These are the ways that you can reach me. And if you think that you want to connect with us, you are more than welcome. We are looking for volunteers, millennials with tech-savvy minds, probably will inspire people. I already got Yudanje to come in. So if you want to connect, more than welcome, because this is not something that we can do alone. We need all the support and all the good people that who want to connect with. Thank you so much.